Next, on this nerdy review, we are now going to be reviewing Mobile Suit Gundam, Gundam 0083. Kind of excited to jump back into the series. This is a series I really did enjoy watching back on Toonami. I think it was, if I remember right, the midnight run for Toonami, because it dealt with some pretty controversial stuff I didn't think, they would actually cover for a while. So let me give you the idea here. So the story of Gundam 0083. It's basically we are following federal forces or Federation forces that are chasing after the remnants of Zeon after they stolen a prototype Gundam armed with a nuclear weapon, and they vow to exact their plans of reviving Zeon. That's pretty much the gist of the plot, okay? Our characters that we mostly follow, though, we're going to be following Kodoraki right here. Nina Purpleton, the creator of the, engineer and creator of the prototype Gundams. And then our lead antagonist right here, which is Annabelle Gato, also known as the Nightmare of Solomon. I swear, where do these people ever get their nicknames? I feel like a lot of times when a lot of these ace pilots, when they get their nicknames, the Red Comet, the Crimson Lightning, the White Wolf of Solomon. Now we have the Nightmare of Solomon. I'm like, where do they come up with these nicknames? Or the Blue Giant, I think, is another one too. I remember, but I'm like, who gives them these? I want to know. But yeah, so we have our three characters right here. I actually really love a lot of this artwork. That's another thing I want to kind of talk about. So, but before I jump into that, so Gundam 0083 is another OVA series that was made or was released back in 1990. It actually came out right after Gundam 0083, which was in 1989. This is a 13-episode series and is also succeeded 2 years later with a compilation movie, The Afterglow of Zeon, which I will also be reviewing later in this episode. And also came up with two shorts. One not too long after the series release was called The Mayfly of Space, and then one that came out years later. I believe it was 2015, if I remember correctly here, and it's part 2 to The Mayfly of Space. Both of those covering a character by the name of Shima in this series. Now, one of the first things I want to talk about this series, and I absolutely love, it is one of the few contending Gundam series in the entire Gundam franchise that has the best overall music. I really dig a lot of the music from this series, especially the first opening of this series, and then to an extent, I love the first ending or the first closing as well. The second opening and closings are okay, but it really shines with that first opening because that one just, I feel, sets a lot of the tone and expectations of this series. Kind of sad after episode 6 we don't get the, is it 6 or 7? We don't hear from that that opening. We go to the second opening, which kind of makes sense. But the overall series, a lot of the music within the series itself, the battle music, or even like the the next time episode kind of like clip thingy at the very end of every episode, all that music is just super solid, super awesome. I really love it. It kind of gives you that 90s vibe. I know I'm not saying it right, but it kind of feels almost Top Gunny at times. That said, too, just like a bunch of a lot of the other 90s Gundam series that was dubbed in the late 90s to 2000s during the Cartoon Network Toonami time frame of releasing a lot of Gundam series. Solid voice acting here. Love all the voice actors. Everyone feels and fits their roles appropriately here. I don't think anybody was miscast or did not feel like they were appropriate for their character whatsoever. I can actually kind of say I did hear the Japanese voices too, and that was when I was watching the Afterglow of Zeon, because that movie was not dubbed. It was kept strictly only in the Japanese, so they didn't take anything from the series itself, no dubbing there. And I can say the Japanese voice acting is actually not that bad either. I do feel that some of the characters, though, I did not like their voices. For an example, I really love, I don't like him as a character, but I really love Mancha's voice actor in the dubbing. I do not like the Japanese voice actor for Mancha. He sounded too wimpy and not this character that Mancha really, like, the way he looks fits with the voice that was provided to him. This very arrogant, kind of douchey character, and very not flamboyant is a term I'm trying to look for, but more of that like pervy kind of dude, like kind of like those characters or archetypes in anime. And that's not going to be a good thing. I'll be talking about archetypes in a little bit too. But for voice acting, though, I really love that English voice acting, and I feel like they fit their characters more than the Japanese did this time around. For the series itself, the story, the plot is not terribly bad. It's not super, like well put together. There were some points that just a lot of the story didn't make sense or what was happening. And I will get to it. It's mostly pertaining these three characters together, but some things didn't correlate or were put together well enough, like explaining a lot more about why Shima does what she does. Doesn't explain the love angle between these two. Haha, spoilers, not really spoilers. And then just focusing a lot, like in the earlier episodes, focusing a lot on these two here, which I will dive into in just a little bit too. Alongside with the story, though, it's actually, again, a nice, good balance between the story and then the mecha fights. A lot of the battle sequences are a lot of fun. I enjoyed watching them for the most part. It does keep you a little bit on edge. Exciting. You don't know who's going to survive, so I kind of like that perspective, other than, the main character having plot shield. Kind of wish that we get a series where we kind of watch them. We think this is the main character, and then boom, they die like a few episodes in or so. Just to throw you off, and then we actually have our real main character. Just to throw you off center. I kind of want that, but the fights are fun, enjoyable, and dare I say antagonistic with the whole between Shiro and Annabelle at the very beginning, and then later on Shima and then other characters. Fighting against Ko and friends. So I want to talk a little bit more about the characters themselves. So alongside with the plot, we got our character development, and a lot of our time earlier on, we're focusing on Ko and Nina. And I honestly really, I don't want to say hate, it's too strong of a word, but I could almost say I hate these two characters. Ko doesn't really change in the series, and he kind of remains like this hopeless child at times, both emotionally, and he does grow towards the end more independent and more adultish as a fighter and a person, but emotionally he's still like a child. And even more childish is Nina for the most part. A lot of times she has this attitude about her and keeps on toying between Ko and then Mancha. I don't know why she does this. It's kind of a crappy thing to do to a person. And then, spoilers, not spoilers, at the very end of episode, not even towards the end, like maybe the last 2 episodes or so, they reveal that, like, oh, she had a relationship with Annabelle, with Gato. Everyone referred to him as Gato. I referred to him as Gato myself. But she had a relationship with Gato, and you kind of have an inkling since the beginning, but at the same time, like, it didn't make much sense, especially like, oh, we know that they're fighting Gato, but she doesn't express more of this like concern for him or whatnot. It's more like this distance. And I'm like, they try to make that make sense between the relationship with these two and then the stunts that Nina pulls against Ko and then even other people like Mancha, for example, but it didn't make sense again. It was like, why are you doing this? Especially when you saw Annabelle, like in the very first episode, hijack the Unit 2. Why didn't you have a reaction like, oh my god, that's my ex hijacking my Gundam? No, she like, oh my god, who are you? Stop! And I was like, so this whole entire angle that they threw out at the very end of the series just didn't make any sense. And I wonder why. Why did you bother do that? What's the purpose? So it's a little bit frustrating. Yeah, so I just want to kind of recap. Just a recap on these 3 awful lovers. Like, I don't mind Gato as much. He feels too much of a zealot at times, but the series does give him reason, explanation. Ko has some cluelessness to him. Here's Nero. Say hi. But Ko does have his cluelessness, and then Nina has her tendencies. The other thing too that disappointed me about the series was the whole last episode. That's just because they cramped so much into that last episode. And it's weird because they know their budget, they know what they're trying to tell with the story, and they just cram so much into it. We got that whole love angle with Nina and Gato. And they tried to cram in more so, and I felt this was super egregious because this series is known for what is to bridge the gap between Mobile Suit Gundam and Zeta Gundam. There is a 8-year gap, or in this case, a 7-year gap between the end of the 1-year war and when the Grips conflict, Grips war occurred. What happened during that time frame? Gundam 0083 was supposed to be the middle one between those two, you know? And we don't really see a whole lot about this development about Titans or whatnot. And this is where I say, like some of the things that didn't make sense, like with Admiral Cohen, and then we see Jamitov. We see like characters that appear in Zeta, but they're like very throw in there, kind of like I was here. Like I have a quick screen moment here, and I have a quick couple of lines, and that's it. Cash in for that. That's what it felt like to me. Like we see Amon from Zeta and Double Zeta. She has one quick scene and like 2 or 3 lines. That's it. Never see her throughout the entire series again. We see Jamitov one time. That was pretty much it. Like maybe like 2 throwaway lines. We see Bask a couple of times. We do see how vicious. Actually, not a couple. We see him actually a good amount in one episode. So we get to see Bask and how vicious he can be too. But other than that, wasn't by a whole lot though. This series was, again, to serve that bridge gap, but also explain like how and why Titans formed. And the last episode crams all that in there. So all of a sudden, like, now we have, after the events of what happened with Operation Stardust, like Titans kind of form and whatnot, and then Ko gets put on trial and goes to prison, serve time, is the best I can understand it, but I would assume prison or something like that. And they just kind of like rush it. The last like minute of the entire series is like, oh, we're flashing in how we're putting in the Titans. Oh my god, Titans, yeah. I'm like, really? That's it? We're not gonna see like this slow development of it. It's just that all of a sudden we had this build up through 0083, and it was taking place in about a month's time frame, and then all that development, but we don't see the development of how the Titans. I'm not a fan of Titans and all. I actually hate the Titans. I can say that with confidence. I hate the Titans, and it just bothered me how like I would like to know a little bit more about like how they came to power or how they came to be, not just okay. Operation Stardust happened, and then here's like 1 minute of just like screen caps of people starting to dress up a speech from Bask, and then that's it. But that was it. I'm like, no, there needs to be a little bit more. I want more explanation, but that's the best we get. So I was a little bit disappointed that it wasn't truly like what it was to deliver to the fans, and it was so last minute. Quite literally, last minute of the episode, and last minute thought, just throwing it in there. Oh yeah, this is how Titans were made. Okay. I just felt it was not sufficient enough. I would like to see more of a progression or development throughout the entire series, like maybe Bask and Jamitov's involvement, Amon's involvement with Access and stuff like that, or her building resentment towards Char, even though we don't see Char in the series. I want to see more about that, but we don't get any of that at all. That it just becomes kind of like, I showed up, here I am, and then that's it. Before I jump into some of the other 2 little segments I like to do here, I want to talk about Afterglow of Zeon, the compilation movie. And I'm not trying to give away how I really feel about the movie. So let me tell you this. The compilation movie was released 2 years after the OVAs came out and literally crams the entire 13-episode series into 2-hour movies. That's not something unfamiliar for us because we've seen other compilation movies, such as the original Mobile Suit Gundam trilogy, where it collapses 42 episodes into 3 2 to 2.5 hour. No, it's 2 hour movies, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember now. Or we got the new translation of Zeta Gundam movies, or we got compilation movies from Seed, or from Gundam Age, and I can name a bunch of more, like Turn A for an example. There's a bunch of other compilation movies that are out there too, but this one crams 13 episodes into the 2 hour movies, and I don't know how it failed so spectacularly. Actually, I can tell you why it failed so spectacularly. The movie is an incredibly bloated, horribly edited, nonsensical, expositional mess of a movie. It is, I'm going to say it out there flat out, it is easily one of the worst compilation movies in the entire Gundam franchise. Easily. And I've seen all the compilation movies. Honestly, I have not seen Afterglow of Zeon until I had gotten this box set. Because just like 0083, or 08, or sorry, 8th MS Team, when I bought my first set of Gundam 0080 or Blue or Gundam DVDs, it was a bootleg. Lo and behold, and it was a bootleg that just played it all episodes, but didn't have Afterglow of Zeon in there. This little set from Right Stuff, re-released from Anime Legends, does have it, in fact. And I was thinking about skipping it, but I'm like, yeah, well, you know what? I want to experience all of Gundam, and, you know, a compilation movie is very different than what the series can ever offer to you, because obviously you're cramming everything from an expanded series that can range from like 6 to 8 hours to like 20 to 25 hours, something like that, right? Into only a 2-hour movie. So in this case here, we have 13 episodes. I'm not going to try to do the math here, but you got 13 episodes trying to cram into a 2-hour movie. It's definitely going to alter some things. How they're going to do it, and, you know, depends on how the editing, the director feels about it, and how it was edited together. And this is where the movie really, really, really fails. So let me try and get myself kind of coordinated here, because I don't want to be a mess like this movie. I keep pointing to the DVD or Blu-ray mess like Afterglow of Zeon. Now, I'm not talking about Gundam 0083, the series, okay? I want to keep that very, very clear. 0083, the series, is good. Good. The compilation movie Afterglow of Zeon is bad. Here's why. So, much of the pacing of the movie feels very super janky and uneven. It kind of goes from expositional narration, which is done it's done by Nina. And it makes it feel like she is the main character of the movie, yet she is shown not as much as other characters, or in this case like Ko, or to a lesser extent Gato. But it's narrated by Nina a lot of the movie itself, and trying to give exposition to things that are being literally cut out of the entire movie, such as the majority of the chasing, the Gundam jacking itself, narration about like certain kind of events and things like that. So really, really cut a lot of that out of there. But it was uneven. So it goes from like expositional to Ko, or like some kind of weird explanation, or some kind of following, because like you would think it's like we're following a specific character or whatnot, because that's how it was set up for the first 20 minutes of the movie, and then we later on go into a different transition, and then we go right back to this, and then to that, and like it shifts in so many weird paradigms. It's again uneven. It feels wonky and cattywampus watching it. Again, it's weird that they focus her as the main character when Ko was primarily the main character throughout the entire series. He had the most screen time, I felt, besides Nina, and they don't even use up most of the screen time that Nina had from the series into the movie. So it's just a lot of scenes with her too, but mostly just her voice actress narrating events. Speaking of which, so with that, as much as they made Nina seem like a main character, and this is where I say it feels really janky, is that all the other characters, including Ko, the main character, pretty much the main protagonist in the entire series, feels more like a side character. Everything that involved him either feels more like an afterthought, or they were like, oh wait, we want to add this in here to give him a little bit of character, but it doesn't work out. And here's some examples of this, right? So like this is where that, again, horrible editing and cutting to the movie, just, it was awful. So, like, certain things were kept in the movies, like, such as, like, Ko helping Kelly build the Valvaro. But the problem was, we don't see the fight afterwards. The whole point of that was in the series, build Ko's character to be more of an adult, basically, and come out of his shell and being a lot less fearless about certain things that had happened in the series itself. We don't even get that. And they're trying to say, oh, it's to help him develop to be more of an... I'm like, but we don't get that fight. We don't get any of that. We don't get any bring-ups of the future. Certain character deaths that happen in the series, we don't see it in the movie here. Which plays role to Ko's character. But taking those character deaths out has no relevance. It's funny enough, too, that we see these characters, and then all of a sudden, throughout the timeline of time run of the movie, they just kind of disappear. And you go like, wait, whatever happened to this character? Where is he? Where's this character? Where did they go? We're at the final battle. Where are they? They were on the Albion. Those sort of things. Other cuts too, such as Chima. And Chima was already a hard character to understand because she had the lesser screen time in the series. And it's even cut down furthermore in the movies. It makes her seem like this vengeful person for no reason whatsoever, or giving a little bit more detail to her vengefulness. It's just, she just feels so archetypical of like an evil villainess, you know? And Gato just feels like a villainous zealot. They took most of his backstory away, explaining why he's doing what he's doing, or why he's motivated to do what he's doing. They kind of threw in the backstory a little bit of what we saw in the 1 Year War, but they took majority of it away, and it took away what made Gato Gato. Instead, he's like, I'm for Zeon, Zeon, and you know, like, oh, I'm gonna revive Zeon. Like, that's it. There's no like reasoning to why he does what he does, or why he's motivated beyond revival of Zeon. So let me see if there's any other cuts I could remember. I'm going off my head here and kind of looking back at my notes too. Oh, even better. Why does, at the very end of the movie, I already mentioned it before too, but why does Ko go to court? And in the movie, they mentioned about going to La Vie en Rose, but they cut that entire episode out, with the exception of the last part of the episode, where we could see federal soldiers shooting at Ko, and that's about it. We even take out, I forgot, the engineer, the Anaheim Electronics engineer, who dies that episode. Spoilers, I'm sorry, but she's just like one of those characters that shows up then dies. It's one of those ones. So I was completely thrown. But it was important because that episode explains why Ko later on gets court-martialed, is because he technically steals the Gundam, even though he was ordered not to pilot the Gundam or whatnot. But the movie doesn't give any inclination to that, like, why do you even bother keep the court scene, and why do you even bother keeping that particular part of the scene when you can say, oh, we're going to go to La Vie en Rose, go to La Vie en Rose, get the Gundam, and that's it. So that did not make sense whatsoever. Also, we get one new little exclusive scene where we see like Nina's shuttle getting closer to Ko's Gundam towards the end, but completely takes out the ending scene where Ko gets out of his hard time because of the Gundam project was erased, the data and everything was erased, so therefore none of his prison time should be served and all that jazz like that. But when he returns to base, we don't see the scene where he returns to base, sees Keith, Mara, and Nina at all. We don't get that reunion. Like, so what's the whole point? Why even have some semblance of some kind of relationship or love between Nina and Ko? Why not just scrap all that love out and throw it out the window? It made no sense. So it was just really, really frustrating about that. The movie just ends super abruptly, kind of like the series does, but it's like, as much as I did not appreciate the ending of 0083, the series, and how abrupt it kind of felt too, because everything was crammed in that last minute, at least that gave you a minute versus like not even 10 seconds of an actual ending for the movie. The movie just basically starts playing credits while using all the like the Titans formation stuff, which is not even quite even a full minute or so. And I was stunned by that. It was just appalling. I'm like, why aren't we getting at least some kind of a decent or good ending? And when I talk about how messy the editing is too, In the series, you can follow along from beginning to end and understand what's going on with the plot, even though with some characters it's a little harder to understand, like Chima, for an example. But everything's pretty much laid out. Even with Nina's last minute like love affair with Gato was thrown at the very end, it still made sense to some point. I mean, I'll bet I'm not a fan of that. I didn't like it. It was a terrible way to throw that in there at the last minute for some random little twist. The movie doesn't tell a very cohesive story. The best thing you can get out of all this was Gundam stolen, Gundam uses nuke, and they fight for a colony, which we don't even see the aftermath or anything like. We don't even understand it. It's just like so much contextual stuff, and it's just what? Anyways, so that's pretty much Afterglow of Zeon. Terrible, awful compilation film. I want to take just a smidgen of time to talk about the Mayfly of Space shorts. There's 2 of them. One came out, I can't remember, it was like shortly after the series had concluded, before the movie, which is a 3.5 minute short about Chima, giving a little bit more explanation to her character. I wish this was actually in the series, though. She kind of has like nightmares, and she freaks out. She looks very uncharacteristic than how she is portrayed in the series, because she's always seemed like super villainous and one of the kind of characters, right? But the short actually gives her a little bit more character. And we see a little bit of a flashback of why she's like this, which is basically because she participated in Operation British and didn't realize that the operation required them gassing the colony before dropping it on Earth. So I can understand that feel of betrayal and that frustration and an upset at her, at the officials and stuff like that, and at Zeon in general. So that was the first short. Actually, we didn't see too much of that argument. We see that more so in the second short, which came out in 2000. I want to say, was it 2010, 2015? I can't remember. But it was more of a still short. There was using a lot of scenes from the first Mayfly of Space, and then a lot of these like kind of like live action comic stills that you would see, right? It's voice, but it's like more like panels almost, and some limited animation too. But we see like more conflict between like when Gato and her first meet and why she resents Gato. Again, resentment towards Zeon in general because of how she was being commanded to do what she was supposed to do. So what she was supposed to do during Operation British and so forth. So it gave a little bit more character to her. Honestly, I felt like the second one could be a little bit more of a throwaway episode, throwaway short, and I would rather keep the first one. I wish the first one was actually in the series, and they could probably squeeze that in there. Maybe throw away more of that Nina Co time and put in that for Chima, just to give her more reason to be why she is what she is in the series. That's my 2 cents on that one, at least. That said, moving on to the next one here, I do want to talk about the suits. And definitely, I'm going to say this much, though. So, this part of the segment here is, again, you know, every single series of Gundam brings in a new slew of suits, designs, redesigns, and so forth. So, I just want to point out some of the suit designs that I actually really liked in this particular series. I do want to say, though, with Gundam 0083, I was not a fan with a lot of the designs. A lot of the Federation designs are really, really ugly looking GMs or gun cannons. I did not like their designs whatsoever. Let me see if I can get the... Is it the Power GM or is it custom? No. That one actually... Excuse me. Looks kind of cool. Is it the custom? No, it's not the Quell. Here we go. Here's an example of one of the GMs. Now, this one looks like it looks decent, but when you start seeing it in action, it looks really weird and janky and kind of crappy looking. I did not like it. These weird, like, designs slash details just really, really off-put me. I don't know why. It looks ugly to me. Even, like, with the main Gundam. So this is the first version of it, just, like, following tradition with Gundam. We're not going to see this tradition until, because this came out much later, of course. This came in the 1990s. But starting with Zeta Gundam, we're going to start a tradition. I'll talk about this more about, you know, we're going to start off with the first Gundam in the series, and then midway through, we're either going to get we're going to get an upgrade to the Gundam, or we're going to get the main suit, basically. So in this series, it's more of an upgrade, though. So we have the first suit here, which is it's kind of a boring design. It's very looking, and then you get here's the upgrade of it. after what 6 or 7 episode 6 or 7, and this is the newer suit right here. The full version is okay looking. I mean, it's got some cool designs, like with the extra verniers in the front that pop out, or you can see that the wings turn around and allow the zip around in space. So that's kind of cool and all, but it's really an okay design. I wasn't really thrilled by it. And everybody's favorite when they come into this series, everybody loves and I can never pronounce his name correctly, the Dendrobium. Dendrobium. I cannot say its name, but they also like the stamen. And stamen's okay. It looks like a very bland, boring Gundam look. Funny enough, like sometimes the suits, like the legs look bigger than the body or whatnot. This is actually pretty accurate. Well, no, a little bit less because the legs are smaller in the series, not as robust as it looks here. But it's an okay design. I think a lot of people kind of like this design because of the wing binders. It's kind of very similar to the Hayaku Shiki almost, but I didn't care for either of these designs. It was okay. That being said, though, there are some things, and like even on the Zeon side, most of the Zeon suits are pretty much what we've already seen. The Rickdom 2s look like Rickdoms that we've seen. Not much of a big difference between them. The Gelgooks look a little bit different because they're the Gelgoog Marine, so they're a little bit more beefier looking, but we get some mobile armors too, Valvero, and then of course the Noisiel, which are not terribly bad designs. Let me try and see if I can pop them up without just name dropping them. So like oh, am I on the wrong one here? I am on the wrong one here. I apologize. This is from our previous review. Let me just go ahead and just close those up so I don't jump around into those constantly. So I mean, like here we got Valvero. Sorry, why did I do that twice? I tapped Valvero, Valwallow. But I heard it. I always pronounce it with another V, Valvero. Yeah, it's an okay design here. Very crab-esque looking, right? And then you have the Noisiel. Anyone who's played Gundam Battle Assault on the PlayStation remembers this dude here. Such a pain of a boss. And just to give you an idea, like look, the Rickdom 2 doesn't look any more different than what we've seen like from previous series. What is this? Okay, this one looks a lot better. That's from a side story though. So yeah, and we get a couple of new ones like the Draxi, which is a very it's literally a scrap mobile suit put together. So it's an okay one. Yeah, I'll throw in Gerber Terra, which is kind of neat looking. Sorry. Oh, it looks the rollout version. Okay, I see. But yeah, this is what we see. This is actually more closer to what it looks like in this. This is actually what it looks like in the series. It's neat. It's actually a Gundam that was changed up to look like this by Chima. Yeah, it had its short moment, like an actual Mayfly itself. Lives for just a moment and then gets swallowed up by all the madness that's happening. But of all the designs, though, this series did bring forth one of my most favorite Zakus of all time, the MSO6 F2 Zaku 2 Type F2. Easily one of my favorite Zakus. The design looks very similar to most Zakus, mostly taking from the original. No, it's more of the J version with, you can see the extra thrusts and so forth. So it's all I'm gonna have to say about why it's my favorite. It's quite easily my favorite because it is basically the final version of the Zaku. There's many versions of a Zaku, but this is the final version of the Zaku. Taking all the positives from previous designs or makes and cutting all the negative crap out of them. This suit is the best version a Zaku could ever get. And that's why the Zaku 2 F2 is my favorite. But it introduces my favorite Zaku. The design for it, actually, this is not what the series looks like. This is more what it actually looks like in the series. I just love the design of it for the most part. Just more robust looking Zaku, more beefy, a little bit, not too beefy. It's like a beefcake, but it's kind of like, it's got a little bit of the beefiness. It's got a little bit of the spherical look of the Zaku still, and maintains all the positives. Despite that, despite Keith calling it a crappy old suit, I still think it's fantastic. That said, too, of all the Gundams introduced in this series, I actually like Unit 2. The RX-78 GPO-2A Gundam Physalis. They never say the name Physalis. They always call it Unit 2. I think it's one of the cooler looking Gundams. It's kind of sad it doesn't have any other armaments, because like mostly in the series, it just uses its beam sabers and the head Vulcans. And it does some kind of like little like flip kicks too, which are kind of cool. And of course, we do see it use its nuke at some point in the series, which is another like crazy cool moment. Like tragic, horrifying, but crazy cool at the same time. Yeah, I mean, like, there's not a whole lot of designs I liked in this series, but those are some things I did really enjoy seeing introduced into the Gundam universe, or in particular the Universal Century portion, at least. Alright, that being said, I kind of want to jump into our next little segment I like to do, which is, I'm new to Gundam. Should I start with this series first? This one's a little bit hard for me. It's really iffy for me to say yes or no. I'm going to try and be more definitive in giving you straighter answers, though. And honestly, I'm going to say no. Don't start on 0083 first. The reason for this one is based off of something that's already concurrent or happening. You wouldn't really understand the motivations behind Zeon. Watching it feels more like they're zealots and they're crazy and all that jazz, and the Federation of the good guys. But then you find out that they're slowly becoming the bad guys because they're turning into Titans, and I think it's just, I'm looking at more of a story aspect. Otherwise, if you, because I'm looking at the franchise whole, or at least in the Universal Century perspective, and I think this is a terrible way to start. It drops you right in the middle between two different conflicts/wars, with a new conflict itself, and you're not given much historical context of what's going on. You wouldn't really appreciate why this series is important within the timeline itself. That said, too, like, the characters are very iffy too. I like a majority of the support cast and some of the antagonists, but our main characters, such as like Nina and Ko, tend to fall flat. Very one-dimensional, archetypical type of characters, which I just don't like, and I don't think a lot of people will gel with these characters either. So I would just say, no, do not start with this first. I would definitely say check it out later. But for your first series, no, don't start on 0083. Not at all. And definitely stay away from the compilation movie that is Afterglow of Zeon. I usually would say, like, maybe watch a compilation movie instead of the series, so that way you can get, like, everything in a nice little bite-sized sit through, rather than going through an entire series. This is one of the few compilation movies I'm going to say stay away from. Do not watch. You are better off watching the full series than watching that garbage, okay? Time is better spent watching the series or anything else, or doing anything else, rather than watching that compilation movie, okay? I wasted my 2 hours. I'm going to save you 2 hours. Don't watch it. Don't do that to yourself. Don't torture yourself. Alright, so overall, Mobile Suit Gundam 0083 gives fans what we've been asking for. That explanation between the gap between the original Mobile Suit Gundam and Zeta Gundam, with some entertaining mecha fights and a subpar story plot. It would have been a better series if we focused more so on the story rather than the love story between Ko and Nina, and then actually making them to actual characters rather than cookie-cutter archetypes. Mobile Suit Gundam 0083 gets a 3 out of 5. As for the Afterglow of Zeon, the compilation movie, the awful, horrible, disgusting compilation movie, stay away from it. Stay away from it. Seriously, it is the worst waste of 2 hours ever. Poorly edited, poorly told, really cuts up the series in ways that it shouldn't have been cut. Gives no explanation to certain characters while giving over-explanation on certain characters, while having an overarching exposition narration by Nina. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The plot becomes so paper-thin, it's laughable. You're better off wasting 2 hours of your time watching other things, or other Gundam series, or even the actual series of 0083 than this compilation movie. Trust me when I say this. I wasted my 2 hours. I'm trying to save you yours. Mobile Suit Gundam 0083, the Afterglow of Zeon, gets an appalling, an abysmal 1 out of 5. Seriously, avoid that movie. I've already mentioned this before, but other compilation movies have something else that you can really, really cherish or bring something new to the table. Sometimes that new thing is not that great. But the editing that is done for Afterglow of Zeon is awful. It's uneven, janky. Character development's not even there. It can't even decide who to focus on for a character. And then everybody's motivations or even the plot itself almost makes no sense at times. Better off skipping that entirely.